At 3 a.m. on May 2, 2026, every yellow airplane in the United States went silent at the same time. No announcements, no countdown, just a request to the FAA to issue a ground stop to make sure no Spirit Airlines flight was still airborne when the company ceased to exist. They planned it in the middle of the night so they could account for every plane and every crew before the news broke. And yet, for the 17,000 people who lost their jobs that morning, it still felt like a shock. To understand how this happened, let's go back to 1980. A man named Ned Homfeld started a charter company in Michigan called Ground Air Transfer Inc., leisure trips, group bookings, the kind of travel that doesn't put your name on a ticket. In 1992, it rebranded, moved to Florida, and took a new name, Spirit Airlines. The model Spirit built was radical: charge almost nothing for the seat, then charge for everything else: the bag, the carry-on, the seat selection, the water. They called themselves an ultra-low-cost carrier, not low-cost, ultra. The difference mattered. A Southwest ticket and a Spirit ticket might be priced at the same at checkout, but Southwest included a checked bag. Spirit charged you $79 to bring a roller bag you were already holding. It worked. Spirit was consistently profitable. It had 34 years of flying with no fatal passenger crashes. Millions of people who couldn't afford to fly were suddenly flying. Then the major carriers noticed. Delta, United, American, all of them introduced basic economy fares. No bag, no changes, no refunds. You could fly for almost the same price as Spirit, except on an airline with a better loyalty program and a flight attendant who didn't hate you. The big carriers absorbed the tactic without absorbing the consequences. They could offer basic economy as a loss leader. Spirit couldn't offer anything else. Then a Pratt & Whitney engine called the GTF started failing. It powered the Airbus A320neo, the plane Spirit had built its entire operation around. Manufacturing defects forced groundings. At its worst, Spirit had dozens of aircraft sitting idle that it was still making lease payments on. The planes weren't flying. The costs were. Then came the merger that was supposed to save them. In 2022, Frontier offered to buy Spirit. JetBlue countered with more money. Spirit chose JetBlue. A federal judge blocked it. The DOJ argued the merger would hurt consumers. JetBlue walked away in March 2024. Spirit was left alone, having spent 2 years in deal negotiations instead of fixing the business. In November 2024, Spirit filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The first time. They said they would restructure, cut routes, reduce debt, emerge leaner. They did emerge, briefly. In August 2025, they filed again. Spirit announced a deal with creditors in February 2026. They had a plan. Then the US and Israel went to war with Iran. Fuel prices didn't rise, they spiked. Between March and April 2026, Spirit incurred nearly $100 million in incremental fuel costs over just 60 days. That is not a number a recovering airline absorbs. That is a number that ends the conversation. Spirit went to the Trump administration for a bailout, a $500 million government loan in exchange for a 90% ownership stake. A creditor group said no. The deal collapsed. At 3 a.m. on May 2nd, the ground stop went out. The airline that had once carried 50 million passengers a year was gone. Here is what happens to an airline after it dies. The planes don't disappear. Spirit had 114 Airbus aircraft at closure, 66 leased, 28 owned, and 20 already committed to a prior sale. Within days, repo pilots were being dispatched to airports around the country, sometimes former Spirit pilots still wearing jeans instead of uniforms, walking up to airport staff and saying, "I need to get on that airplane. I'm taking it back." The answer was almost always no at first. Spirit's assets, planes, engines, gates, landing slots, were estimated at $1.3 to $1.7 billion. The liabilities were over $8 billion. The math does not resolve well. But the airport slots are a different story. Spirit's gate at LaGuardia alone was valued at $86.7 million. It had gates at Fort Lauderdale, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Houston, Dallas. Every surviving carrier in America is watching the liquidation process. American, JetBlue, Frontier, United, they've already flown tens of thousands of stranded Spirit passengers on their own planes. That's good PR. It's also reconnaissance. The wind-down budget was $217 million, with projections running to February 2028. About 130 employees were retained, not to fly anyone anywhere, but to manage the dismantling, return the leased planes, sell the owned ones, lock the offices, oversee the logistics of erasing a 34-year-old airline from existence. The A320 is one of the most reliable commercial aircraft ever built. The leased ones go back to the lessors and get redistributed to carriers around the world. The owned ones will be sold. New interiors, a different seating pitch, a fresh coat of paint. The yellow livery gets stripped. What was once unmistakable on American runways gets absorbed into fleets of airlines that may not even be based in this country. Spirit also owned maintenance facilities, spare engines, and enough parts to run a small airline. All of it going to auction or back to whoever holds the note on it. When Spirit entered a market, fares fell across every carrier on that route, not just Spirit's own. The industry calls it the Spirit effect. People who had never been able to afford to fly suddenly could. The seats didn't recline, the delays were legendary, but it worked for the people who needed it to. Those people have fewer options now. Spirit was the first major U.S. airline to completely shut down in 25 years. The last one was Midway Airlines, which collapsed 2 days after September 11, 2001, when the entire industry stopped flying at once. This time, there was no external catastrophe. This one died on its own. The fuel spike was the final trigger, but it was already bleeding out. The blocked merger, the engine groundings, the 2 bankruptcies, the basic economy arms race it started and couldn't win. The model worked until it was copied by airlines with better balance sheets. Right now, somewhere in Fort Lauderdale, there's an office building with Spirit's name on a lease that someone is trying to get out of. There are hangars with tools and parts tagged for auction. There are 130 employees whose only job is to help the company disappear in an orderly fashion, then collect their final checks and leave. And in airports across the country, the yellow gates sit empty. There's no one to announce a delay, no one to charge you $15 for a carry-on. By 2028, the wind-down budget runs out. The last creditor gets paid whatever cents on the dollar the liquidation produced, and Spirit Airlines, which started as a travel club in Michigan in 1980, will be officially, completely, permanently gone. The planes will still be in the air, you just won't recognize them anymore.